everyone. Sorry, we're just chasing up Isaac, our elder, tonight, who's going to be delivering our welcome to country. Hi, Isaac, you there?
Just unmuting myself quickly.
Beautiful.
How
There
are you?
he is. Hi, Isaac. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Please, everybody, welcome Isaac. We can't see or hear you, but I'm sure we can all feel you applauding Isaac in spirit. We're so lucky to have Isaac here from Kuma, Kaaru, to deliver a welcome to country for us tonight. So I'm coming to you from Ghana land. I know I've got a couple of cousins over in Melbourne who are watching tonight, hopefully. So I really want to acknowledge that we all come from different lands, and it's really important that we remember that the land we're all meeting on was never ceded and was stolen, and that we need to work together toward treaty and work with Aboriginal people alongside them, not for them. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Isaac, if you're ready.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's an honor to be a part of tonight as well, and tonight's event. So I'm really appreciative to have been invited here tonight to welcome everyone to country. I think the main thing for me tonight is I'm going to go over some language for everyone from Ghana country. So I'm going to go over a little bit of Ghana first, and I'm going to explain what I've said in Ghana. So Nā Mauni, Nai Nario Zak Kutnua Janam, Nai Tangi Wulta Ghana Nananjuri Mil, Martu Achanga Ghana Mirna, Nai Wankandi Marnina Putni, Nadlaku Yartaana, Marnina Putampanti, Nadlu, Ghana Yartanga Tikinti, Nachalia. So my name's Isaac. I'm a proud Ghana and Nananjuri man. It's I think for me to acknowledge where I'm from. Not only am I Ghana, but I'm also Nananjuri, so from the Coorong as well. That's where my family comes from also. So for me, learning Ghana has been tricky. Our language has been endangered for a long time, so we've been trying to revive it here. So to have the opportunity to speak it for people tonight means a lot for me, because I can continue it within not only my community here, but Australia wide. Given tonight we've got an audience from around Australia, so it's great that I can do that tonight. And I really want to extend my thanks to Kelly for having me here tonight to be able to share that with you all. As part of what I just said, I just want to acknowledge my elders, the ones who have really empowered me, encouraged me, and taught me to get out there and really, I guess, speak language and practice ceremony and protocol, and continue it within my community. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing the things I'm able to do today. And, I'm continuously learning from them. So I'm always thankful for the things that they teach me. I'd also like to acknowledge the ancestors, my ancestors, your ancestors. I invite them to be here with us all tonight, to look after us all and keep us safe, no matter where you are and no matter where you're from. I understand, as said before, that not everyone here tonight is watching from Ghana country. So I just want to welcome your spirits here tonight on the Ghana country. I want to invite your spirits here tonight to be with us all in spirit on Ghana country. And I invite your ancestors to travel with you and your spirit here tonight. With me tonight, I'm going to be playing some yuraki. So a lot of people, this is the tricky thing about performing from home, but you got to learn how to do it. But I've got with me my yuraki here. So everyone knows it is the didgeridoo. So there we go. Big hollow wooden tube. And this instrument here, it doesn't come from Ghana country, but we like to acknowledge the people where it does come from. So it comes from Yolngu country, and the traditional name for it is yuraki. I always like to say mai mak Yolngu, which in Yolngu translates to thank you. I think it's really special to acknowledge the Yolngu people by speaking their language as well and thanking them in their language. So I'm going to play a little bit here for you tonight. I'm hoping that you guys can feel the sound and feel the vibration from it tonight. And I'm hoping it still makes an effect, even if it's over online. So, Chalia, thank you. Thank you. I think the importance of playing that for everyone here tonight is that we use it down here for welcoming ceremonies. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch my breath as well.
Thank you, Dad.
We use it here for welcoming ceremonies and blessing ceremonies. So I really wanted to play it here tonight for everyone, and especially for this event, to bless tonight and welcome everyone. So thank you so much for having me, everyone, and thank you so much for having me, Kelly. And I hope you guys have a lovely launch. Chalia, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful, Isaac, and such an important message to us all to remember the importance of culture and language. And you and Jack and the team at Kaaru do such an important job in nurturing culture. I'm sure everyone here thanks you so much for that. We've already got lots of, I'm not sure if you can see the chat, Isaac, but heaps of messages say that was absolutely beautiful. And thank you so much. So thank you so much for having us. You're welcome to stay if you like. Well, we understand you've got to catch your breath. You've got other things to do. So if you need to head off, that's totally fine as well. But thank you so much. That was absolutely so beautiful.
Chalia. Thank you, Kelly.
Take care. Wow, such a stirring. Welcome to Country, a way to start this very small event. We are running tonight on a budget, as you can see. It's literally just me in an armchair in my bedroom with my laptop and a microphone that I got for $200 off like eBay, but then couldn't figure out how to plug in. So it's actually just me and my laptop. I did have grand designs for tonight. I was going to hire a big accessible venue and put on a big party for us all to celebrate this book and amazing opportunity that I've been given and wanted to share with you. And then COVID happened. And then I realized that if I wanted to hire the venue with the level of accessibility that I wanted at the venue that I wanted with this food and drinks package, it was going to cost a few $1,000s. And I don't have that. So I'm sorry that it's just me and Isaac. But I'm not sorry for Isaac. But hopefully tonight we can have a very intimate gathering of just us and start it off in exactly the right way by remembering that the lands we are sitting on or standing on or lying on tonight, however you're joining us, belong to us all, but they belonged and belong, present tense, to the Aboriginal people first and foremost. As I said before, they were never ceded, they were stolen, and I believe it's responsibility of all of us to do what we can to reconcile with Aboriginal people and with, well, even reconcile is the wrong word because we haven't reconciled in the first place. We haven't done it the first time, let alone reconciling. So it's something that I carry very close to my heart, is doing what I can as a non-Aboriginal person to continue that work. And as I mentioned in the book, I'm not a perfect person. I make mistakes in my allyship for Aboriginal people, as with any group, but all we can do is learn and encourage each other to keep learning and to do what we can each and every day in any small way to leave the world a better place than we found it. So thank you once again, Isaac. I always find the didgeridoo a very stirring instrument to hear with those vibrations that you mentioned earlier. And it was amazing how much those vibrations and that feeling right at the center of your chest translated even online. So thank you so much. I'm just going to pause here to check the chat as we go along. Kelly says, "Don't be sorry, it's you we've come to see, not a wanky drinks and food package." I know, but I wanted to get drunk. I feel like I've earned that after all this work on the book, but here we are. So thank you, Kelly. Again, lots of love for Isaac. Thank you, Sonia, for being here. Yeah, super grateful for Isaac and for all of you joining me here tonight. So let's get started, she says, about half an hour into the, into the thing. Let's get started. So I'm here to share with you this evening this very small, very short, but I hope very important and powerful book. It's very important to me. It's very personal to me, and don't know how well you can see it because unfortunately the yellow and white isn't great for visual access, but that color was assigned to me before I wrote the book, so we do what we can. I want to tell you a little story about how this book came to pass. So as you might imagine, as a disability and human rights and etc. advocate, I get a lot of emails. And one day I was checking my email and I got an email from someone called Catherine Larson at Debut Books. And I thought, oh, that's probably spam. Someone tried to sell me a book, you know, bit of a book nerd. So I'm on a lot of like mailing lists for Dymocks and that kind of stuff. But I genuinely thought that's what this email was. Thankfully, I opened it because inside was this amazingly humble, simple email that basically said, "Hi, my name's Catherine. I run a small publishing house in Melbourne called Debut Books. I'm currently working on the mini-series. And the mini-series is going to be eventually 8 short books, small books, like so big, they're all the same size. And I want them each to be about a different topic, particularly by writers from marginalized groups. So we've got one about dieting and fat phobia and healthy body image. We've got one about sexuality in the works. one about bisexuality and queerness in the works, but my next one that I want to put out is about disability. And I'm looking for someone to write this book. And Catherine said, I did have a writer lined up, but for various reasons, they've had to pull the plug on writing the book. So I Googled disabled writers and I found your name. And I looked into you and you seem all right. Do you want to write a book? And I said, well, yeah, all I've ever wanted to do is write a book. And this is just like me. This is the way I live my life. If it's not an election that someone tells me, oh, just give it a go, you won't have to do very much, and I end up getting elected. And then I get this book offer. And I I continue to struggle for a long time with imposter syndrome and questioning whether I'm worthy of all these incredible opportunities that seem to fall into my lap. And I'm incredibly blessed and have a charmed life in the way that I get offered these opportunities. But then I sat down and thought about it. I thought, well, no, you've actually got like an entire hard drive full of material that you've been writing and creating based on the barriers and discrimination that you and your siblings, brothers, sisters, nibblings in the disability community experience. And writing ever since childhood was always my way of trying to express how I felt about the world and how I viewed it, but also trying to understand the world. And I write in the book about growing up with undiagnosed autism. I wasn't diagnosed as autistic until I was 27. I'm going to say 20 because my dad always is grumpy at me when I say 20 and he's watching. So I've always been on this quest to understand the world and try to express my feelings about it in a way that I wasn't always able to do verbally or in socially acceptable, neurotypical ways. So I realized that I already had a lot of the very rough sort of skeletal material for this book. And that's when I realized that maybe there was a reason that this opportunity had found its way to me. So I thought, yeah, all right, I'll have a Zoom meeting with Catherine over in Melbourne and see what she wants and see what she's got to offer. And if I like what I see and what I hear, I'll write a book, I guess. So I met with Catherine and was just immediately drawn into this incredible woman who had this, relatively, I'm guessing comparatively lucrative, well-paying job at Penguin at one point in her life. But a couple of years ago had decided to leave that job precisely because she didn't believe that them and other major publishing firms were doing enough to include and promote diverse voices. Women writers, non-binary writers, people of color, disabled people, the list goes on. So to her absolute credit, she packed up her desk at a very comfortable job and decided to go out on her own and found Debut Books just a few short years ago. And what an incredible journey Debut Books and Catherine have been on since then. There's now 5 out of 8 books published in the mini collection. And I really do encourage you to get onto the Debut Books website, debutbooks.com.au, and check out the diversity of subjects, of voices is so important. And the next mini, I believe, is going to be about living with HIV. So yeah, the diversity and the importance of amplifying the topics that Catherine is keen and willing to put the work into publishing is really admirable. And unfortunately, we don't have Catherine with us tonight, partially due to my disorganization, partially due to the fact that I had told her that I was doing this book launch, and then and she agreed to come and talk to us all. And then, you know, my health took a turn for the worse, partially because she's busy running her own publishing firm and getting the next mini books out, but also partially, and I think she won't mind me saying this because she's come out publicly about it since, you know, ironically, when Catherine asked me to write what has become Dandelion Heart, she said, you know, the reason I want to engage someone like you is I have experience of disability as the sibling of someone who has disability, but I understand that that is different to actually living with it yourself. Of course, since then, Catherine has been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. So that between her physical health and my physical and mental health being what it is, we have certainly faced a lot of hurdles in getting this little book out to the world, but I am so proud and so thankful that of all the publishers in the world, it was Catherine that found me, because I really feel that we found each other for a reason. And I felt so, you know, it's such a corny word, but I genuinely have felt so blessed to have Catherine come into my life and to have someone who absolutely understood right from the get-go what I was trying to achieve with this little book, and didn't at all try to censor me, didn't at all, was just guiding me and walking with me the whole way through. So I really want to, right from the get-go, give a heartfelt thanks to Catherine, and also Amy, the incredible editor of Dandelion, or Dandy, as I've come to call it, my son, Dandy. And their support has just been incredible. So I wish they could be here tonight, but they've, I completely understand why they're not. And thank them for contributing to this book and to my life in the incredible way that they have. Yeah, thank you to Jack, who's just put the link to the Debut Books website in the chat so that everyone can check out the amazing work that Catherine and Amy and the team at Debut Books are doing. Please support them. Don't just support this book. Support each and every one if you can, or even a few. There's bound to be a topic that will speak to you. As I've said, there's a wide range of topics, and each of the mini books only costs $9.99 plus shipping and handling, so about $15 all up, and it's well worth that incredibly cheap price. It doesn't go anywhere near paying Amy and Catherine back for the incredible work that they do, but I'm so proud to be published by such a diverse and inclusive publishing firm. So please check them out. So that is the little journey that this book has been on thus far. I thought I might read some of it to you, if that's okay. And again, it better be, because you can't tell me otherwise. Gone mad with power. So let me just find the pages that I decided to read in the order that I decided to read them, and give our beautiful interpreters a chance to swap over while I do so. So one of the topics that I was really keen to address in the book was this divide that I think exists in the disability community at present and has existed for decades. And that is the divide, or perceived divide, of the experiences of disabled people ourselves versus parents of children with disabilities. And oftentimes when we as disabled advocates speak out about our experiences, it's not uncommon for us to be contacted by a parent saying, well, yes, that's all very well and good for you, but you can speak out, and you can speak, or you can walk, or you can do this thing that my child can't do, and therefore you don't speak for them, and you can't. And I really wanted to address why I think a divide doesn't need to be as big as it maybe is right now, and why it's important that we work together and value the diversity of voices in our community without speaking over each other, and recognizing that there is enough room for all of our voices if we allow there to be room, instead of imagining that our voices are limited and we need to fight for that, and actually work together to lift each other up and amplify each other's voices rather than talking over each other. That's something I'm very passionate about. So I wrote this, and it's a short essay, and it's called Parents, We Need to Talk. Literally. Here we go. I'm not a very confident reader. I'm much more confident a writer, so please bear with me. Okay, here we go. Parents, we need to talk. Literally. Some parents of disabled children, especially autistic children, get labeled, often by themselves, it seems, warrior parents. Just as other examples of archaic language around disability is fading into the past, this too needs to stop. Now, before my social media blows up with comments scolding me for this, let me clearly state that I do understand the intent behind this label. I have seen my own mother's old diaries full of words like Kelly, physio, Kelly, hydrotherapy, Kelly, negotiated education plan. The list goes on. Believe me, I understand that parenting a child with disabilities or health support needs comes with commitments and challenges parents don't tend to expect when they first find out they're going to have a child. But more than this, I understand what it feels like to be the subject of such words. When I was about 10 years old and quite new to using a wheelchair as opposed to a walking frame, I went with my father and my brothers to visit our grandparents, my father's parents, in Canberra. We were having dinner and I needed to go to the toilet. Staying in a house that was not mine and therefore not set up to be accessible to me, and having lost some independence since starting to use my wheelchair only a short time before this, I asked my father for assistance. And I really want to stress at this point, sorry for going off topic, but this is not the father that's currently in the chat. Just so that nobody attacks you, Papa. You're all good. Sorry, Emma. Sorry, interpreter. I asked my father for assistance. He escorted me to the bathroom and I carried out my business. And when we returned to the dinner table, without fanfare. However, as I took my place at the table, my grandmother, who is since deceased, said to me clearly and with conviction, "You are lucky that your daddy stuck around with a child like you." I don't know if anyone else at the table heard this. No one else seemed to register it or to react. After all, it was a gathering of extended family with multiple conversations taking place at once. I can't even really recall how I reacted either. My muscle memory suggests it was a wordless lowering of the eyes and a biting of the lip. Being so young and not having the knowledge, skills, and confidence I have now at age 32, such a reaction seems like it would be normal. Children and young people, disabled and non-disabled alike, tend to take their messaging about the world around them from adults, especially those in parental and guardianship roles. The echoing of the words in my now adult mind and the visceral reaction I have to them even decades later is proof enough that we all need to be more conscious of our messaging. It is arguably possible to downplay the intent of my grandmother's words. She was old and therefore old-fashioned, and most likely had little to no interaction with people with disabilities, especially in her formative years, owing to the fact that back then we faced systemic institutionalization of disabled children. But even taking this into account, I struggle to reconcile the competing ideas that she seemed to hold, even subconsciously. She had 2 grandchildren with disabilities who she seemed to love and accept for who they were, while still believing that perhaps believing that her son would be better off without them. It's a hate the sinner, not the sin mentality that I struggle to comprehend. I am certainly not suggesting that people have to agree on absolutely everything in order to get along and respect each other. The respectful working relationships and even friendships I have formed over the years with members of parliament and lobbyists who have very different beliefs to mine is testament to the fact that this is not what I believe. But to simultaneously outwardly express support for a person to exist in the world and to be celebrated exactly as they are, while also believing that they are lucky to actually receive the same acceptance and support and respect, is strange to me. You are lucky that is, in my mind, a supposedly more diplomatic way of saying, of course I love you and enjoy being around you. It's just a miracle to me that anyone else does. Now, I'm not trying to virtue signal or blame the words of others, especially those so far in the past, for the hurdles I have faced for accepting and embracing my disabled identity. Of course, I am now an adult responsible for healing my own wounds, and I have some way to go, but I've already done much of that work. The fact that I had not thought about my grandmother's words in the late 90s for some years before I began to think about what I wanted to cover in this book is proof of the inner work that I have done. I also believe that part of this healing means acknowledging the past. And as someone people potentially look to for guidance on the respectful treatment of disabled people and embracing disability as an identity, I feel I need to talk about it. I feel it is my responsibility to help create a world in which people are asked to consider the factors that influence their thoughts about disabled people and the potential impact of such words and thoughts before they are spoken. Perhaps this will help prevent these wounds from forming in the first place. In mental and emotional health, just as in physical fitness, surely prevention is better than a cure. Now, even as I type this, I feel as though I can hear your mind ticking as you hold this page in your hands. What on earth, you might wonder, does the archaic view of one octogenarian in the 90s have to do with my role as a modern and progressive warrior parent, TM? Hear me out. In my view, both of these reactions to disability, believing that we are inherently less deserving and being hush-hush about our lives, and conversely, taking on the role of a spokesperson for disabled loved ones, are in some ways opposite reactions that present many of the same issues. In my experience, and if the reading I have done over many years is any indication, also the experiences of many other disabled people, parents and guardians take on their child's disability as their own identity, which can have the opposite effect to what is perhaps intended. It is natural to feel a need to talk about your child's experiences and needs. How else, after all, will they get the support they need? how will we create a more aware and inclusive world? The thing is, often these discussions seem to happen at unnecessary times and in inappropriate settings. Disabled people hear their family members, teachers, support workers, and others talk about our bladder issues, our bowel movements, and menstruation in large groups of other people, often unknown to us, in an attempt to create a holistic picture of our support needs, and sometimes just to vent about the challenges of dealing with those needs. Sometimes this seems to be done without much consideration of how this might feel, or indeed on the assumption that we cannot understand what is being discussed anyhow. Neither of these factors provides enough mitigation to make this acceptable, in my view. People who communicate in ways other than speaking, or people like me who are at times assumed unable to verbalize upon first meeting, often understand much more about our surroundings than we are given credit for. As an example of this, look up the poet Adam Cope or Martin Pistorius, author of Ghost Boy. What's more, I would argue, that if it does not seem possible to gauge someone's level of understanding about such personal topics, and therefore not currently possible to obtain their consent to talk about it, the best way to respect their right to basic human dignity and privacy is to avoid talking about it with other people, except in limited situations, such as medical appointments, where it might be directly relevant and necessary. If you wouldn't like a stranger at a conference hearing about how you awoke to find your sheets drenched in menstrual blood before arriving at this morning's keynote, chances are your kid or student doesn't like it either. But Kelly, you might say, how else am I going to promote acceptance of my child? Well, person in my head who may or may not end up reading this, I'm glad you asked. For me, this is once again a question of intent, tone, audience, and outcome. Yes, it is important to share the realities of living with disabilities and health conditions, demystifying them, and demonstrating a case for the funding and support that we require. I myself have public social media profiles where I share a lot of my lived experience. But I am an adult who can clearly decide how and when and to whom and what I want presented. An autistic child, or perhaps even an adult, in the middle of parasympathetic nervous system overload, more commonly known as meltdown, is unlikely to be able to do this. I myself, as an autistic adult, have been photographed in this exact situation by a well-meaning friend who found the blanket over my head and the soft toy to which I desperately clung and the rhythmic rocking and humming that I performed during that meltdown cute. I was rendered nonverbal by the overload, unable to understand what was happening and how invasive I found it, but completely unable to articulate this at the time. I felt like a caged exotic animal, forced to endure the flashing cameras and pointing fingers of tourists. So yes, I believe it is important to demonstrate that disability is not always a picnic. Rarely is it a picnic, in fact, as mobility aid users tend to not move well on grass. But I would argue that this is not often necessary in a time when all the information in the universe is accessible through a small device in your pocket. The likelihood that a similar or even identical experience and information about that experience is available without you having to post your crying, overwhelmed, hurting, confused, nappy-clad child for all the world to see at their most vulnerable. Further, the nature of social media inherently makes the narrative about your child very difficult to control. With a few snaps and a few clicks, your child's image can take on a life of its own, far removed from its original purpose. Parents might stumble across a photo of their own daughter who has Down syndrome, used without their knowledge, on a very public billboard during the abortion debate. The misunderstood and maligned communication styles of autistic people are reduced to memes and TikTok challenges. People with facial or skin differences are mocked as ugly and comical in threads almost entirely moderated using IP addresses coming from someone's mother's basement. Next time you have the impulse to post, perhaps ask yourself, what outcome am I seeking here? Does this post portray my child from a position of strength and respect? And how would I feel if this were posted or written about me? Do the positive outcomes outweigh the risk of adverse reactions? Try to remain solution-focused to avoid garnering only pity. For example, Kelly is unable to walk, yes, but access to a few hours of support a week and a kick-ass wheelchair that could probably serve as a Mars rover if needed, enable her to be as independent as possible, work multiple jobs, maintain financial independence, and contribute to family and broader society. But Kelly, you might persist, I am my child's voice. You don't know what you might know what it's like to be a disabled person, but I'd like to see you live 5 minutes with the parenting challenges I face. Let me address the voice argument first. Every parent is their child's voice at some point in their life. Children are not born with the advanced vocabularies and fully conscious awareness of their every need and every choice that is available to them in this big, wide world. An infant cannot choose whether to be vaccinated, whether to have the mashed banana or the mashed potato with bits of carrot in it for lunch. Therefore, every parent goes through an extended period of literally and figuratively being their child's voice. Of course, the difference is that with a non-disabled child, there is an expected and even highly anticipated end date on this responsibility. It is understood that the child will, like their parents before them, grow up to loudly question their parents' rules and beliefs. They might demand the keys to the car, or even a new car altogether. They will probably tell their parents that they don't know what it's like to be young, even though the same hormones and issues have more or less been around for centuries. But with disabled children, especially those of us whose parents were told that we would never develop the ability to speak, this end date does not seem to exist. Many parents wish it did, and I'm always a little saddened when a parent to a child with cerebral palsy approaches me to ask a question like, how do I get my child to speak as clearly as you do? While I appreciate the intent behind it, such questions are problematic for two reasons. One, it assumes that there is some treatment, some formula that when applied to anyone with the same diagnosis will yield the same result. Second, valuing verbal communication over other forms of communication and indeed focusing too much on what could be different or better about your child might cause you to miss out on the many skills, talents, and personality traits they already have. Focusing on who we wish we were invariably causes more distress than accepting and building upon who we are. Besides, what if it were also possible to put an end date on the need for disabled start that sentence again. Besides, what if it were also possible to put an end date on the need for parents of disabled children to act as their voice? Well, more often than not, it is possible. Increases in our understanding of the brain's neuroplasticity, coupled with advances in technology and the wider teaching of languages like Auslan, are giving voices, or rather amplifying the voices that were always there for people worldwide. An autistic teen gets access to a neighbor's computer and begins typing messages to her family that she had held on to for years. Entire novels are written using a dictator trained in a communication system consisting entirely of blinks of the eye. So perhaps our belief should not so much be, I am this child's voice, but rather, I am this child's voice until they find the right communication method for them, for instance. As the examples above hopefully demonstrate, and as I truly believe, no one is really voiceless. There are just people to whom we haven't yet learned to listen. So, okay, I still need to address my lack of experience as a parent, the barren feminist hellcat that I am. In writing this piece, it is not my intention to promote one experience over another necessarily, or to further the divide between disabled people and parents of disabled people. Twitter is taking care of that well enough on its own. In my opinion, the disability community benefits from the expression of diverse perspectives. We suffer dehumanization and pigeonholing when it is assumed that we all think and feel the same way. Discussion and debate within the community allows us to be seen as non-homogeneous, unique, and nuanced beings. Having said that, I don't believe the divide between disabled people and parent family carer representatives needs to be as great or as vitriolic as it currently is. No, I don't know what it is like to be the parent of your child, but I'm willing to bet that I know what it's like to experience some of the things that they have and probably still do experience. I know what it is like to live in a world that is more focused on some metaphysical, better version of me than the one that actually exists. I know what it is to feel small and to be underestimated and maddened by my inability to express this understanding. But now that I am able to express many of the thoughts and feelings that I could not express in the past, I feel obligated to suggest that if you really want to help disabled children, one of the most effective and respectful things you can do is to use our lived experiences as a learning resource rather than fodder for online debate. If you really want to help disabled children, please listen to the adults that we become. So I wrote that because, like I said, I don't think the divide needs to be as great as it currently is, but also because I firmly believe that if a disabled person were properly respected and supported by the NDIS, by the healthcare system, by the mental health system, by society at large, then parents and caregivers wouldn't need to take on so much of that work themselves. and perhaps wouldn't need to take on that identity quite as much. So that's the first piece I wanted to share with you tonight, just as some food for thought. I'm going to stop to catch my breath and check the chat. Check the chat. Yeah. Thank you, Papa. Papa approves this message. Thank you, Brenton, for your lovely feedback. So true, says Sonia, who I know is a parent. So thank you so much for listening to our perspectives, Sonia. I'm so glad I'm listening, says Freya. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Josie. I hope I'm pronouncing all your names correctly. So that was that one. I'm just going to catch my breath for a minute. I also forgot to bring my water bottle over to where I could reach it. And now I'm stuck in this very, very trendy and very visually pleasant but inaccessible chair, which is kind of ironic. So just give me a minute. Would you believe that when I was born, my parents were told I'd never walk? Did that for 10 years, decided it wasn't for me, gave it up. But they were also told I'd never be able to read, write, or talk. And those are the three things that I've never stopped doing, much to their chagrin at times, I'm sure. Oh, Todd, the amazing housemate, has come to the rescue with some water. Thank you, Todd. We love Todd. Orla says, I would listen to the audiobook. I'm glad you raised that because it is in the work. I found a producer to help me produce it. And I'm also in talks with some performers to help me with the vocals. As you can hear, it's quite challenging for me to do it all on my own. So it is in the works and I can't wait to keep you updated. But if print isn't accessible to you, it is also available via Kindle and all those great platforms in ebook format as well. Just put it in the search bar. Oh, I can't wait to read, says Jack. Thank you so much, Jack. This needs to get out into the world, Kelly. I'm trying, Sue. Trying. Unfortunately, it's much easier to get media about things I don't consider quite as exciting than it is about this little book, but we're getting there. Thank you all so much. So, shall we tell another story? This one's much shorter and it's a poem. And I'm really glad that I picked this one because when earlier in the chat I was asking people to drop their favorite part in the chat, and this came up multiple times, which is really, really touching. Okay, so this is the poem called Kintsugi. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation because it is a Japanese word, and I usually believe that you shouldn't print a word you can't pronounce if you don't speak the language, but I was really moved by this concept, and it's the concept in Japanese art of when things are broken, like a pot or a bowl, mending it together using gold as the glue, and in a sense making it more beautiful than it was initially. So I thought that was a fitting title for this poem. Give Emma's hands a minute to catch up with me. The great thing about working with interpreters, apart from accessibility, of course, is that it encourages me to slow down in my speech because I'm very quiet and very fast, which is not necessarily a good combination. So hopefully, Em and Amber, I'm going at an okay speed. All right, here we go. Kintsugi. If you think your body can't be beautiful because it is too broken, maybe your ideas are too fixed. You were moored in your youth before you even knew you were a boat, to a harbour made of whispered words and sideward glances, warning you against taking chances. You, so small, the waves so big, would swallow you if you didn't swallow your pride. Stay in the harbour. Stay safe. Stay tied. But if you weren't meant to tackle the waves, then why were you born straight into the arms of the sea? If you could be veered off course as easily as they say, why do your sails expand to embrace their friend, the wind? See, a dandelion is born with all its petals in one place, but everyone knows their beauty comes from being scattered to the breeze. The tide is rising. You'll be tired no more. The time has come to leave the shore and venture into the uncharted. The waves they warned you against lap against you, warm and welcome, and you are swallowed, not by blackness, but by color and by light. New territory for you to claim. They see your gentleness and call it metalless. But you, my girl, you are a mighty ship born for the path less traveled. The escape rope unraveled. Your only compass, your dandelion heart. Thank you, Emma. Beautifully done. So that is where the title of the book comes from, Dandelion Heart. And it's quite interesting because it had that phrase sort of going around in my head. Just those two words, dandelion heart, repeating in my head quite just at random intervals. You know, a writer brain. It's not mental illness if you're a writer. Creativity. I'm fine. And when I got the opportunity to write this book, it came back to me stronger and louder. And I didn't even know what those words meant. I hadn't written that piece at all. I just had these two words in my head, and I knew that was the title of the book, and that those words belonged in a poem or a piece somewhere for the book. And I've always loved dandelions. I've loved that concept of something being able to be so fragile and still so beautiful, and you know, living with disability as well as mental illness, the ability to find beauty and strength and resilience and belonging and community in the things that make us supposedly fragile or broken or fractured is something that's been really important to my life. So I thought the dandelion was hopefully a perfect imagery for that. And yeah, it's I'm really pleased that that piece in particular, and that title and that imagery and that message about being able to find identity in being fragmented and broken seems to be really translating with people. And I'm really grateful for that. Tanya says, I want that on a t-shirt. It's not mental illness if you're a writer. Look, you know, I think we need to do some Dandelion Heart merch, and I think we found our first t-shirt here tonight. So if anyone's a graphic designer in the crowd, go for your life. Absolutely happy to commission you to make that shirt, and maybe put some of the funds toward making the audiobook, so that I can hire the amazing producer and performers that I want to do it justice, and to give in particular the vision impaired community, but also people with low literacy issues or people with other conditions for whom print doesn't work. I know some people, some neurodivergent people find listening a lot easier. So I really want that to be the next step in making this book and its message more inclusive for everyone. So yeah, let's make some t-shirts and get the money to make it happen. That's great. First item of business taken care of. Fantastic. All right, well, those were the two pieces that I had planned to read tonight. It is a very short book. It's just over 12,500 words. It's barely 90 pages long. It's very small. You can, one of my partners knocked it out in a plane ride. Other people have knocked it out before they went to sleep at night. So you can easily, probably easily knock it out. But it's also written so that you don't have to read it in chronological order. You don't have to read it in one sitting. The topics are all different and they're all standalone pieces. So I hope that you can, you know, at least take something from one piece tonight. and indeed from the book, but I don't want to give any more away because I want you to buy it. It is only $10, $9.99 plus postage and handling. But you basically get a piece of my heart and soul for $10, which, you know, is a bit of a bargain if I do say so myself. And you're also supporting the amazing Catherine and the team at Debut Books, who, as I mentioned earlier, have really gone out on a limb and are doing so much and learning so much every day about how to be more inclusive and accessible and promote and amplify the diverse, often marginalized voices that we need to hear. So please support Catherine and the team. Please support me also by buying it for several reasons. One, the more copies people buy, the more my publisher sees that I should probably write another one and get paid to do it. And it's really important to me personally. This is an incredibly personal book, but also to be very frank with you for a minute, if I haven't enough already, because there's an entire book about my first sexual experience, my relationship with my grandparents, my relationship with, you know, my mother, you know, it's personal enough. But if I could be real enough with you for a moment, just again, the more a lot of people at the moment have been asking how best they can support me, because I kind of accidentally went through a bit of a public mental health experience recently. It was more public than I meant it to be, because I sometimes forget that, you know, I'm Kelly Vincent, whatever that means, and I can't necessarily just say stuff on Twitter without it getting picked up by the advertiser. So yeah, some of my recent hospital experiences have been quite public, and people have been asking about how they can support my mental health. And quite honestly, it sounds a bit kind of cheesy, but the best way you can do that is by supporting my writing and my art. Buy my books, come see my plays with True Ability. We're a new theatre company. We're just over a year old, and we're, again, disabled led, amplifying those voices and those stories that need to be heard. And the reason that supporting my art is the best way to support my mental health is that it allows me to work in environments where neurodiversity is perhaps a little more accepted and celebrated, and indeed utilized than in day jobs. This is saying nothing of my current day job employer. They're absolutely wonderful. And of course, the more I can write and do art, the more I can work on a schedule that works better for my mental and physical health too, as that is changing a little bit. And nobody kind of warned me that, even though it's not technically a degenerative condition, being in your 20s with cerebral palsy is very different to being in your 30s. So the great thing about writing is I can do it from bed. So please show your support to me and to Catherine and Amy and the team at Debut Books. This book, even if it doesn't sell one more copy as a result of tonight, has already changed my life and helped me with my health and my imposter syndrome more than I can put into words. So please support local artists. Please continue to support diverse voices. Ask yourself not only who is in the room, who you are reading about and who you are seeing on TV, but who you're not seeing and reading and hearing from, and why that might be, and what we can do together to expect more from society, and to expect everyone to amplify and respect those voices and experiences. So I'll just pause again to go through the chat a little bit. Marianne McKay, are you Taryn's mum? Is that you? Marianne McKay, love listening to you. Inner confidence shines through. Thank you so much. Tanya is buying their copy right now. waiting to be autographed. You know where I live, Tanya. Stu Ghibli says, I can help you with the audiobook and I'll trade you for a print copy. That would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jack. What about starting a GoFundMe campaign to help you get the audiobook started? I had thought about that, but I just haven't quite had the time or energy to do it myself yet. But thank you for reminding me, and maybe we can work on it together as a team. Sue asks, can I buy copies in bulk for gifts? I would assume so. I don't know if there is a limit on the number of copies that you can buy. But either way, head over to the Debut Books website, debutbooks.com.au, and you will either be able to order as many copies as you like, or you'll be able to email the lovely Catherine to request a special amount of copies and get that happening. And the other thing I want to say too is that I'm aware that particularly in the disabled community, not everyone has access to online shopping because of guardianship or financial difficulties or lack of access to technology. So if you genuinely fit into that group, please get in contact with me and I would love to see what we can do to provide you with a copy. Please don't do it if you have the resources and ability to buy offline. Please don't just try your luck to get a free copy out of me. But if you know people that might want to read it that can't necessarily purchase one, I'm more than happy to see what can be done there. So please get in contact with me. I'll put my email in the chat right now, and I would be so thankful to hear of any ideas that we can do to get this message out there, and indeed to hopefully prove that there maybe should be another Kelly Vincent book, and then another one, and another one. That would be wonderful. And indeed, you know, one of the great things about being a Debut Books author is that I now am part of this amazing collection with all these diverse perspectives that I can now promote as the team of authors. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. The email is in the inbox, in the chat. Jackie is asking, can I forward some copies for people in that situation? That's lovely. Again, you know, you can buy copies in bulk online, and then perhaps if I get contacted by anyone who, in fact, I already know a couple of people who can't necessarily afford a copy that I would love to donate to. I would love to coordinate with you, Jackie, and anyone else you're willing to do that on getting some free copies available, because it's really important to me, for obvious reasons, that this book is accessible and widely available. So thank you so much for being so willing to share your hearts with me, and for sharing my little Dandelion Heart. Thank you for understanding what I'm trying to achieve with this book. Thank you for supporting diverse and marginalized publishers and authors. And thank you so much. I am so glad and honored to have you all here with me tonight, and indeed in my life. But I'll close off there, because otherwise I'll start rambling and crying, and I've done enough of that in the last few weeks, quite frankly. So I'll cut you off there. I'll go and have a breather and maybe a glass of wine, and I hope you can too. But again, debutbooks.com.au. My email is in the chat, kellyleahvincent@gmail.com. Get in contact and let's do what we can to share this important little message with the world. I've been so humbled to be chosen to share this book with the world, to be considered worthy of this. That's something that I'm still struggling with. And to be considered worthy of your time tonight is an honor in and of itself. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you once again to the incredible Isaac for his such important and stirring welcome to country. Thank you to our interpreters, Amber and Emma, tonight. Again, thank you to the team at Debut Books, and thank you to everyone who is coming up in the chat saying they've ordered their copies and they can't wait for them to arrive, or they've already arrived and shared their copies, shared their thoughts with me. Please continue to do that, and also tag Debut Books in those posts as well, because the more feedback they get about what's good about this book and what makes it accessible, and what needs to change to be a more accessible and inclusive publishing company. I know the team at Debut are really open to that feedback and really aren't just giving lip service. They're really taking that on board, even as a very small publishing house. So I'm so grateful to them and to you. When you get your copy, please take a picture of you with it and hold it, of you holding it, and send it to me. It absolutely warms my heart to see, and I'm hopeful I'm getting a little collection together to share on social media of everyone with their copy. Get in contact with me if you're in Adelaide and would like your copy signed. I'm more than happy to do that. It has been, I've had the absolute best time signing copies and coming up with the stupidest messages for people, as I'm sure those of you who know me well can imagine. But thank you again so much for your time. Thank you everybody that's contributed to tonight. I genuinely love you all with all of my Dandelion heart, and please remember to take care of yours too. Have a great night, and thank you all again. I love you. Good night.